Mercedes boss Toto Wolff is not ruling out switching back to an older car concept that he says is much slower on paper after the world champion's continued struggles in 2022. Lewis Hamilton, meanwhile, insists that the current W13 car, despite 5 races of data and new upgrades for the Miami GP, has not improved at all since the start of the season. Mercedes had an initially promising but ultimately disappointing weekend in Miami, starting F1's newest event by topping the timesheets in Friday's practice, but then falling back after subtle car changes for qualifying and the race, with George Russell and Hamilton eventually finishing 5th and 6th. The team's biggest issue is the violent bouncing of their car on track, which is not reflecting in their simulations. The difficulties have led to Wolff being questioned on whether the team should return to a previous design, with the car concept that Mercedes initially debuted in 2022 in Barcelona testing, having appeared much more consistent with its pace compared to the no side pod look the team debuted for the next test in Bahrain and have kept ever since. On Sunday night after the Miami race, Wolff said the Barcelona car was clearly much slower on paper, as he insisted, "We need to find out how we can make the current car work predictably for the drivers." But he also didn't rule out a switch at some point. "I wouldn't discount anything," the Mercedes team principal explained, "but we need to give all our people that have produced great cars in the past the benefit of the doubt, and we believe this is the route to go." Barcelona, the next race, is definitely going to be a point in time where we're able to correlate with what we've seen in February in the first test there with the old concept and gather more data. "I'm also annoyed by always saying the same thing a lot, gathering data and making experiments, but it's physics, not mystics." Wolff said Mercedes haven't experienced these correlation issues with any other of their title-winning cars before, but added, "We are faithful to the current concept. We're not looking at the lady next door if we like it more or not, because it's still good. We need to understand before we make a decision on another concept. Where did this one go wrong? And what is the goodness of the concept? And what is the badness of the concept?" And that is a question you can only respond to yourself. But I would be asking ourselves to get an answer after Barcelona, because that's the real correlation we have. And by then, we've got to look at ourselves in the mirror and say, did we get it wrong or not? The bouncing issue cannot be replicated on the simulator or in the wind tunnel, but Mercedes had experiments planned this weekend to correlate some modelling work it's done to try and get on top of the issue. Until that is achieved, Wolff said Mercedes is flying in the fog a little bit. "It's clear that there is potential in the car, which is fast," he said, "but we just don't understand how to unlock the potential. It's a car that is super difficult to drive and on the edge, dipping in and out of the performance window, more out than in. And dissecting the data with a scalpel is just a painful process because it takes a very long time. And as a matter of fact, the data sometimes doesn't show what the drivers tell us. Certainly they have their hands full with a car that is not at all comfortable to drive or nice to drive or predictable to drive. But the data doesn't show these big swings. We haven't had this situation before where it just doesn't correlate what we see on the screens with what the driver feels. That's making it even more difficult." Asked by Sky F1 if the car is handling better now than at the start of the season, Wolff replied, "No, not at all. I think we have seen a performant car yesterday in FP2 that was real. We were able to put it in the sweet spot, and today in FP3 we were completely off with the experiments we did. Creeped a little bit back, but the car is still bouncing like a kangaroo. The drivers are not happy with it, and you can see that is the reason why we are off." Interestingly though, Wolff said Mercedes' slide back down the order on Saturday actually helped them to understand their issues better. It's never one thing that is responsible for performance or non-performance, but we had a good car yesterday afternoon. We worsened it a little bit. Some things we understand, others not. Hamilton had another frustrating weekend in Miami, having been comfortably the faster Merc car, before an unfortunately timed safety car eventually led to him finishing behind young teammate Russell for the 4th race in a row. Hamilton is also impatient waiting for Mercedes' car improvements. He insisted that despite updates, including a new front wing in Miami, the W13 hasn't got any faster all year. That's in contrast to Red Bull and Ferrari, who continue to improve out front. Asking if Mercedes had taken a step forward in Miami, Hamilton said, "Much better qualifying session than I'd had in the past few races, so I'm grateful for that, to be honest," he said. "I'll take it. We just keep working at it. So much amazing work has gone on in the background. Everyone's working so hard. Unfortunately, I don't think we're necessarily moving forward at the rate we would like to. That gap is, I think, similar to at the beginning of the year. So we just got to keep our heads down, keep working, keep focused, keep trundling. Eventually we'll get there." Hamilton was then asked for his prospects in the race, but the 7-time former champion was unsure how the W13 was looking in the long runs. Russell, meanwhile, echoed Wolff's sentiment on having faith in the current car concept. "We showed on Friday we have a fast car. There is a fast car there, and I have total faith and confidence it is there somewhere, and we just need to understand how to unlock it," he told Sky Sports. "I think we can find chunks and chunks and chunks of lap time if we just find that killer key to get in that perfect spot. I am not sure if that will be next race, but the guys are working day and night at the factory to find a solution, and we all believe we can. So we have got to stick to our guns, keep pushing down this direction, and it's going to be a number of races before we say we need to go a different way, but I believe in them. And things aren't going to get better anytime soon, according to Formula One legend Emerson Fittipaldi. Lewis Hamilton and George Russell face bigger issues at Mercedes than first thought, according to Fittipaldi. Fittipaldi pointed out that McLaren have the same engine, but that the Silver Arrows did not look as fast as them in the last race. Speaking to Vegas Insider, he said if you compare Mercedes to McLaren, they both have the same engine, but McLaren is running much faster than Mercedes. That means it's not the engine, but also the chassis. There's something there to be improved for sure. The F1 pundit Martin Brundle believes now might be the time for Mercedes to change their car design. Suffering with extreme bouncing, it is speculated it is costing Mercedes roughly a second per lap. After 4 difficult races, the team arrived in Miami with updates for the car. The W13, though, was still struggling with porpoising. The team have failed to wipe that out. And if they can't, Brundle says Mercedes must make the call in coming races to scrap their design philosophy. There must be a point coming soon when they have to accept this car and concept doesn't work and have a redesign for the second half of the season, he explained to Sky Sports. In which case, what are you going to do? I can't imagine the team want to copy someone else's concept. With cost cap and a 23-race season, it is a really difficult situation Mercedes find themselves in. The next race or two, starting here, is critical for them solving the problem. Can they understand it? Can they fix it? If they get the potential out of the car, I think they will quickly be back in the game. Mercedes are third in this year's Constructors' Championship with 77 points, 47 behind Ferrari. Mercedes will once again look to solve their issues when they race again at the season's next weekend at the Spanish Grand Prix.